A plus for Jose Alba, who was working at a convenience store in Harlem, New York City, and defended himself against a violent attack. This is Dr. David D. Shine, and welcome to our special episode of Saving America. In occasional slots, we go ahead and award A plus or F awards to public figures, politicians, so-called celebrities, and sometimes just regular people who happen to make the news for whatever reason that attracts media attention. And in this special case, we're doing an A plus for this poor convenience store worker who defended himself and has been arrested and was locked up at New York's famed Rikers Island. And not a lot of support in the public community, fortunately, for the rogue DA. We're going to award the DA a F grade for criminally prosecuting Mr. Alba. So let's talk a little bit about the details that have been reported. And again, we have to include a disclaimer that we can only work from the details that comes out, but I have read multiple news reports out of New York City from several different news sources. So I do think the information is pretty close to accurate. So in any event, Mr. Alba reportedly came to the United States 30 years ago from the Dominican Republic. He became a citizen 14 years ago, and he either runs or owns a small convenience store, also referred to in news reports as a bodega. And in any event, he's in there. This fellow's girlfriend goes in, tries to buy a bag of chips with a bogus debit card. The debit card is repeatedly rejected. So this fellow storms into the store. He's 37 years old, big fellow, a person with a prior criminal record. And he runs in behind a counter to beat up Mr. Alba. That was clearly his intention. And so Mr. Alba had a knife nearby and used it to defend himself. And the video is quite clear. They also mentioned, by the way, that the girlfriend went back in and stabbed Alba, fortunately not fatally, while he was defending himself against the much larger man. And so what happened is the reason this made the news is the second part of the story. The criminal pampering New York City DA Alvin Bragg, who's famous for putting criminals back on the street, sent this survivor to Rikers Island charged with murder. And his office originally sought a ludicrous $500,000 bail. It was later reduced to $250,000. Following massive public outcry, fortunately, the bail was reduced, and he has been released. One side note to this in a more recent report is that because he was wrongfully jailed at Rikers Island, his wounds that he suffered did become infected, but he said, fortunately, now that he's released, he was able to get medical care and is on antibiotics, and we certainly send our best to him. I want a special note in this case, and the DA Bragg is Black. Mr. Alba is obviously Hispanic. And it seems to me that race may have played a part in the despicable treatment of Mr. Alba. I hope that's not true, but it sure is not a far reach to look at the situation and to wonder if that is what has happened here. And again, not a good sign for New York City, famously one of the most diverse cities in the world. And they need to be aware of the fact that all different races and gender affiliations need to be treated in the same manner. So a special A plus for Mr. Jose Alba of New York City, and an F grade for New York City DA Alvin Bragg for his pro-crime approach and failure to defend the citizens of New York City. This is Dr. David D. Shine. Thank you for joining us for this special episode of Saving America. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite platform.